Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jared Moon and crew here. Do I have to introduce each person? Joe's like, nope, let's speed this along.
No.
So we have Kyle Schrum, Ashley Hicks, Joseph Von Dolan, and Joe Courtney. That was easy. But everybody's here, right? So it's pretty exciting for me. But we got to get moving because with 5 people, a lot of stuff to cover. And so we're going to go straight to updates. I'm actually most interested in VD, man, because we don't get to hear from you as much being over in Japan, especially on the podcast. So give me some updates. How's life?
Life is busy right now. It's end of year, so work is crazy. Family things are happening, so trying to balance all of that stuff is a challenge. So, yeah, updates for me, just living, just training, doing the thing.
LIVIN.
And
yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and call this out. I mean, it's the tension between us. Who's going to have the fastest Murph time at the end of this year-long project?
Not you.
See, I had a feeling that was your desire because your times keep getting faster and faster. I actually I haven't been fully paying attention, but did you already beat me? I don't know.
Well, it depends on what your time is. I don't know what your time is.
What's your fastest time?
I think I posted like a 25 something the other week.
Okay. Yeah, mine's pretty fast, but whatever. Hey, Joe, we're ready for your updates. I think I actually don't remember, but I'm 100% sure it was in the 26s. I'm like low 26s, so you got me right now.
Yeah, it's probably only like 10 seconds into the 25. So
I had some left in the tank. I'm just letting you know.
I had nothing, so yeah, you probably have a good chance. Plus, you have age on your side. Come on, man.
I'm officially gonna throw out whatever programming I'm doing, and I'm gonna go on the Murph program. I've said I'm never gonna do it, but I'm gonna just run miles every day, about 1,000 push-ups, pull-ups, squats, like Murph program. I only have 9 weeks left anyway, so I gotta beat VD.
Kill it, man.
My new hashtag. It's my new hashtag until it's done. Beat VD.
Bust them.
All right, Joe, what's up, man?
Just focusing on my recovery with my hamstring injury going on. It's getting better. Still tight. Doing PT, getting massage. I've also started sleeping on a grounding mat.
I thought you were saying chili pad. Okay.
No, I mean my house is cold enough at night. It drops down to the low 60s in my house. Yeah, sleeping on a grounding mat. It's pretty cool. It's actually my wife's Christmas present that I'm just using until I wrap it. So that's fun.
That's awesome.
So it's pretty cool, yeah.
Does it go over your entire bed, or is it just a mat, like a pad, like I have?
So yours only touches your calves. Mine's like 3 feet by 1 feet, so it's like the length of my body almost.
So a very narrow person.
Yeah, very small. Like a child size.
You're slightly longer than 3 feet.
It goes shoulder to quads.
Okay.
So it touches a lot of me, and it's pretty cool. I am not tracking heart rate variability right now because that's just not what the Garmin does. But my resting heart rates, it still does that. And typically I have like a 3-beat window, and that 3-beat window has moved down 3 beats since using it. So that's the only thing I've noticed.
Got some data though.
Yeah.
Nice. Kyle, what's up?
I actually have an update this time, but it might still be kind of lame. I'm on the wearables bandwagon now. I got a Fitbit mainly because it was free. Yeah, my father-in-law had it, and then my brother-in-law had it, and neither one of them wanted it anymore. And I was like, okay. So I'm on the wearables bandwagon now. Been tracking my sleep for a few weeks now, and
Sleeping?
That's been really helpful. Huh?
Are you sleeping?
I am sleeping, and my sleeping is improving.
Nice.
Also, after the beast, I put this thing on, and like my resting heart rate was all kinds of jacked up for like a week and a half after the beast, and it was very eye opening. I was like, wow, actually am jacked up from this thing.
It's
not to go back to the beast, and we're not going to spend any more time on it, but
it's just cool to see, having done a lot of events like that, it's and just see your heart rate get jacked up like that and know that there's an actual, you're not just sore, your body's working extremely hard to get back to normal. Ashley.
Yeah.
How's life?
Oh, great.
Still living in a
My
renovated
kitchen is
state?
finally done. Yep. They are now into the bathroom. So my kitchen is done. That's the most important thing. It's all put together. I'm starting to hang things on the wall. So it's starting to feel more like home. The most important thing is my gym is up. So I have worked out 3 days in a row now in the garage, and it's awesome because it's way bigger than my UK garage. But I have a really cute old neighbor. We live in a cul-de-sac, so we only have 2 neighbors. And he came out and was like, "Oh, honey, what are you doing? Because it looks like you're working too hard." Because I was doing the 15-meter shuttle run out and back out in our cul-de-sac. And anyways, I like politely waved and smiled, but kept going kind of thing. And speaking of sleep, we upgraded to a king-size mattress, and it's a Casper. It's the hybrid, so it has like coils and the foam. This thing is baller. So
Is it nice?
I haven't gotten the chili pad, but it's awesome.
Hey, I mean, I think Caspers are supposed to keep you cool too, right? Isn't that like one of their features?
Yeah, haven't been hot. So, and then we both have the coconut bliss pillows that aren't supposed to be hot either. So, hey, calm your matter.
coconut bliss.
Yeah, they
Does it
smell
like
like
smell like
coconut.
I
Yes.
didn't realize that was a thing.
Hopefully you like coconut
Wow.
for whatever,
I do.
7 to 9 hours every night. Does it
You can't
affect
really
your
smell it.
All right.
So like when you smell coconut other places, do you get sleepy now?
No,
That was a valid question though. I like
that was.
It's going to
Well,
happen. It's going to happen to you.
Jared, what's your update?
So I have 2 that kind of coincide with yours. I'll go in reverse. So sleep, reading the book, almost finished with it now, Why We Sleep by Matt Walker, PhD. And this guy is the guy you want to listen to on sleep. I've listened to a bunch of podcasts he's been on and been following his work for a while. Saw his TED Talk a long time ago. But this guy is like the worst self-promoter ever because I didn't know he had a book. I had listened to probably like 10 podcasts with him, watched his TED Talk, all this other stuff, never knew that he had a book. And I was like, just found out a few weeks ago, put it on my wish list, just got to it this week, and it's awesome. It's really awesome. I highly recommend the book for everybody. Why We Sleep. We all know that we should sleep. We hit that pretty hard in our recovery game and with our athletes. We want people to be sleeping, but he really goes into every facet of how sleep affects your life. If you have kids, how much sleep they should be getting and the negative effects of them not getting enough sleep. And then also, with yourself, cancer and sleep, athletic recovery, being optimal. So really a book recommendation is my update there. I really focus on my own sleep, so I'm doing the best I can, but still it's interesting to learn all those things. And then my last update is my garage gym. So I have have for a long time, a very like small kit, easy to transport garage gym, just the bare essentials. And the main reason is because we move around or have moved around, but we've recently decided, don't think we'll be moving for at least several years, just because we kind of like the spot that we're in. And so I am upgrading the garage gym in a massive way. So I'll update everybody more as we go along. But right now I'm doing clean out. I'm getting rid of like everything in my entire garage so I can put flooring down every square inch of the space. And then a bunch of new equipment's going to be coming in a few weeks. And so I will update everybody on that, maybe some sort of video for the YouTubes or whatever the kids are on these days, and I'll update you guys, but I'm really excited about it.
So wait, you're going to get rid of the reverse hyper?
No.
No.
I got rid of
okay.
I got rid of all the stuff in my garage that is not gym equipment.
Keep the kids' bikes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, my kids don't have a bike anymore. I threw all my tools away. Like it's a gym now. So that's
Your wife
Gotcha.
and you don't have cars anymore.
Yeah.
well, that's the
Got
one
rid
thing.
of the cars too.
That's one thing is and that's always my difficulty, right? So she still needs to be able to park her car in the garage. I'd like to park mine in there as well, just so we avoid the hail damage when it comes 2 to 3 times per year in Texas. But yeah, it's coming. I'm excited about it because, I have had this tiny gym equipment, which gets it done. Don't get me wrong, but I'm gonna finally upgrade on a few things.
Pull-ups easier.
Yeah, like if you've been in my new space, which I think, so Ashley's been there, Joe's been there, it's pretty cramped. It's like, it's a little nook. Like it's the worst space I've probably had. So now being able to expand into the other 2 bays is going to be really helpful.
Just adds another dynamic to the workout. You just kind of have to avoid each other.
Yeah, it works great if it's only you, like, which is 95% of my workouts, but add 1 or 2 other people and it's unfortunate. All right, that's enough of the updates. We're going to go into the study. So pretty interesting one. The study name, Muscular Preconditioning using Phototherapy improves the physical work capacity of the quadriceps when applied between repeated bouts of resistance exercise. Borsa 2019. That is an awesome overview there. All right, what we're talking about, phototherapy. If you have listened to the Better Humanology podcast back in the day, I introduced you to a product and a person, Scott Nelson, I believe was his name, and the product was Juve. So Juve is a infrared and red light therapy machine, and we talked a lot about photobiomodulation, right? Yep, got it.
Photobiomodulation, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and so that is where I was first introduced to that term. Back then, if you guys want to go listen to that, I highly recommend it. I am not, again, sponsored by Juve or whatever, all the disclaimers you need, but they're the only ones I actually really know who are putting stuff out like this, but I'm not deep into the red light therapy world. Anyway, we talked about photobiomodulation, so this study is kind of talking about the efficacy of that. And so what they wanted to do was see if red light therapy and infrared, this photobiomodulation or phototherapy, so we'll call it, can improve strength endurance by delaying onset and extent of fatigue compared to the sham. The sham being, I'm sure they just put red lights together and put it on your legs and it did nothing. And they thought that there would be higher torque and work output by doing 4 sets of 30 reps of isokinetic knee extensions twice. And so they would do the twice part. They would do with a sham treatment or the phototherapy treatment, then 72 hours later, they'd come back and they'd do it with whichever one they didn't get. So it's not like a control group and, like a red light group and a non-red light group. Everyone got both treatments, which is good because I think that makes a study even better because now you don't, like with creatine, there's responders and non-responders, right? So that completely gets thrown out the window because every single person had both treatments. And there were 10 men and 10 women, Ashley. So there you go. The women were represented in the study.
Finally.
And I'll just go straight to the conclusion, and then we can kind of talk about everybody's thoughts on it. It wins. It won. So there was higher peak torque, higher average torque, more total work, and average power. All were up and smashed the sham version. And by smashed, I mean just in every capacity. It ended up being around a 7 to 10% gain, so not an epic gain depending on who you are. And there's just a lot of studies on this, so it looks like 100% effective. There wasn't anybody where it didn't really work or, anything other to note. So I'll go with you first, Joe. What are your thoughts on it?
So I think it's just one of those studies that it's really, really cool. And he even says that it was surprisingly fascinating to do. And I think it's going to turn into hey, let's probably go look over here and see what else this can lead to. And he even notes it later on, like, okay, now that we know that it does do these good things, let's see if it's going to better for strength, better for hypertrophy, better for this, that, and the other. So that was really cool. It was, I was just debating if, so then like application for like the everyday athlete, which he also mentioned. So that was my first thought, like, okay, that's cool to have these big lasers and stuff, but how are they going to work with the everyday athlete? The people that actually are going to use them.
Yeah, and that's why I introduced the the Juve right at the beginning because you can get them on Amazon. There are other competing companies. You can go to, I think a lot of tanning bed salons now offer that as like a different service, like a red light infrared service. I've seen some of that advertised in this area. So not just, hey, go tan, it's actually like other options that you have there. So VD, what were your thoughts on it?
So my thoughts were, again, like, how do you apply this to the normal person like us? I was reading through the study as well, and it mentions that it doesn't necessarily, they haven't really tested the efficacy of the red light therapy before exercise, but after exercise when you're already tired as more of like a recovery thing. So doing it before you're training, they're not sure that it would actually work. However, when you're already tired, so how do we do that after we have already exercised without, stopping in the middle of your workout, blasting your legs with these infrared rays, and now you're delaying outside of those blocks that we set. So I'm not really sure how you could do that other than to, do it post-exercise as part of your recovery. I wish they would have like a chili pad, lined with infrared lights. That would be amazing because then you could sleep on these infrared. What's that?
Just combine it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Just put it all together, and that way you're recovering at night and you're recovering with this proven study as well. But yeah, other than that,
I find that really interesting and kind of one of my questions too, because it seems to work on the studies they've done like this. It works like intraset, I'll never be that person. I don't even like Compex or Mark Pro, like the idea of like hooking diodes to my leg in a workout. Like I hate the idea of that. It's not that it's ineffective. I couldn't see myself ever doing that. And it's the same with this red light therapy. I'm not going to do some squats, turn on, some lights, blast my legs, and be like, all right, another set, because that 7 to 10% gain might not be enough to warrant that. But I have a lot more questions left hanging, like you're saying, because I have one of these Juve devices. I don't use it as much as I should, especially after reading these studies. I probably should be using a lot more. But if I just use that on a daily basis for 20 minutes, is that going to accelerate my recovery in a significant way? And they haven't really gone that deep. I mean, the mechanism behind it, basically, it makes your blood use more oxygen, which is, we've talked about in length and part of the recovery game and everything. Like the reason we go for a long, slow walk is blood flow. Blood flow brings more oxygen to other parts of your body, and that's what it's helping do. That is the photobiomodulation process. So my hypothesis is that, yeah, it will work to accelerate your recovery by pushing oxygen to more parts of your body, but I'd love to see that measured. But every other study, they mentioned 16 other studies in reference to the efficacy and recovery and things like that, then also 5 more on hypertrophy, all point in a positive direction for this idea, this use, phototherapy in general, I guess.
I mean, we were talking about this yesterday. I was just talking with a buddy at work, and it seems like if you were, I don't know, a power lifter that steps out and does one set, and then you can go jump back in the booth, get your red lights on, and then come back out, do the next set. That would, in my mind, be like the best use. But for what we do, probably best to just finish the workout and do some red light therapy.
They should probably just change all of the lights in your gym to just red lights. So that way you're working out in red lights.
That's it.
You could do that in your fitness nook.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll get a bunch
of
like,
tanning bed.
Just
red light.
cover it with red light.
Just LEDs everywhere.
Noted. I will keep that in mind. So when I had this thing, I used it more in North Carolina because I had it in my office. My office was on the second floor, and I actually had my neighbors ask about it because I'd leave the blinds open or whatever, but I would do it at 5:30 a.m. or something as part of my morning routine at that point, and they were like, what are you doing in your, like, there's this giant red glow coming, because we lived in like a kind of like a small mountain type community. There weren't a lot of houses. Everybody could, a lot of space between houses, but it was just funny. They're like, what is that red light like coming out at like 5:30 a.m.? I'm like, oh, sorry.
You looking in my windows at 5:30 in the morning.
You don't need to look. It was like pretty, I turned it on and looked one night. I like went outside to look, and it's pretty hilarious. It was like lighting up a significant area, but pretty cool. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
Kind of the same thing. I feel like this is kind of out of reach for most people. the people that we talked to, and even in the study, they were saying that this has big applications to elite athletes. They were highlighting elite athletes, and this would be a perfect thing for professional athletes who are in facilities and have almost bottomless pits of money where they can buy all this kind of stuff, to be able to get that slight, edge over other competitors. But I was doing the same thing, thinking, how do we bring this down to a garage gym athlete? And really, I just feel like what this does is it highlights the importance of recovery. They were doing this during the workout. They were doing this red light therapy during the workout, and people's muscles were recovering during the workout, and their fatigue was going down, their output was going up during the workout. And so just the fact that you can actually recover during the workout and increase your output, to me, just proves that the recovery afterwards is just that much more important. And so if this is not something, which for most people, it's not something that they can really do right now, unless they save up, a lot of money for one of these red light things.
I mean, I don't
find those other recovery aspects that you can focus on and that you can prioritize, and make sure that you're prioritizing that recovery, because to me, it proved that recovery actually does. It's just more proof that it actually does improve your performance and improve your output.
I'm not sure that these red light therapy things are out of reach financially as it's kind of been hinted at here. Like Juve, like their bigger models are like $1,000 and above, but they have smaller ones for like hundreds of dollars, and then on Amazon they can be $100 or less. You just don't know like if those work or whatever the quality of them. So you'd want to you get the best that you can, but at the same time, he mentioned in the article, and I agree, is if you were to calculate your annual budget for supplements, if you do, like, I mean, pretty much the only real supplement I take is protein at this point. So I don't spend a ton on protein, but if you're one of those people who you're taking, 5 or 6 different supplements every single month, you have to resupply those. And other than like protein and creatine, there's not a lot of studies done on everything else. So whatever else you're taking, if you were to add that all up over the course of a year, just stop doing those things and buy one of these, in which every study that's almost ever been published says like, this is something that works. It will accelerate your recovery. Like, it is good for you. I think that it becomes affordable dependent on your current budget for, supplements and things of that nature, fitness in general. Or if you have a really expensive membership to a gym that you could just stop going to and start exercising in your garage, hey, you could easily buy one of these things too. And I don't care if anybody buys one or not. In the article that we read, he mentioned them being like $10,000 and all this other stuff. That is like ridiculously high quality grade, like medical level, like getting an MRI machine in your house. It'd just be stupid, right? But I think there are much lower versions of this that are much more affordable to the consumer.
Yeah, I'm looking at their website right now. They have the handheld device, which is their smallest one. It's called the Juve Go. And
yeah, how much is that one?
It's $295.
See,
that's before taxes
doable.
And stuff. So
need that for my hammy.
Yeah, it's not even a chili pad, right?
Or just get a new hammy.
Yeah, just get a new hammy. There we go. That was on sale too somewhere.
Oh, you have one on the other side. Just use that one.
You're good. All right. The only other thing I had on this was, do look at other studies for phototherapy. There are a lot of stuff beyond recovery that you could look into if you're interested in it. Now, I will say, Ashley, do you see yourself using phototherapy in the near future?
I mean, if the studies all say 100% this helps somebody, then yeah. I mean, why not invest in something, again, like Kyle hit, for recovery? I mean, if it's going to help you and you will see better performance, better output, 100%, yeah. I could totally see myself doing that. Maybe put it in my new office that I'll have, and then blind my neighbors like you did.
Yeah, it's slightly, well, I don't really get embarrassed with all the crap that I do around my house. I expect my neighbors to conform to me. So
there you go.
Let me see if I had anything else in my notes. No, I think I hit everything. Oh, except for one of the people from the study was from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, and I wanted to make sure Kyle knew that if he didn't already.
Whoa.
I did glance over that.
All right.
Significant. I was actually debating if it would lead to overtraining and how you would apply it, if you would apply it every day or just occasionally for recovery or intra, because this one they use it during the workout, but you were talking more about recovery post. So
that's just how I would use it. Are you talking about? Are you saying like you get over recovered? Which can happen. Yeah.
Well, because if you're doing it to increase your performance, you're going to be lifting more and putting more strain on the muscles, but it's because it's helping it recover more.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
But could that lead to overtraining, doing too much because you're kind of hacking certain areas?
Not if you're subscribed to a programming service that calculates all the volume out for you, in which you don't have to worry about doing too much or going too far. Just throwing that out there. Yeah.
It sounds magical.
Lifting more weight's not a bad problem to have, I guess, though.
Yeah.
There you go.
I would, one thing that you bring up, I think is interesting. If you have too many antioxidants post exercise, specifically like aerobic exercise or even in lifting, right? Too many antioxidants is going to stunt the inflammation that was needed for the body to repair. Like that's how we grow. Like if you it's almost like taking a lot of ibuprofen right after a workout. That's like the worst thing you can do. A lot of people do that in certain sports and activities, but if you stunt all that inflammation, there are times when those things are good for you. So I also see if you use to your point, Joe, if you were to use the Juve too much, could you over recover to the point the body's not making the necessary adaptations? That I have no idea, but interesting point. Food for thought. All right. Let's move to the next category.
The fun.
So we've never done this before. We're going to try it out. We're calling it...
Stir the pot?
Stir the pot. Okay. We just got the name Stir the Pot, where we cover some... This will not happen very often because this was like the perfect storm. I normally don't follow anything ever. Joe had to turn me on to the Peloton thing, and one of our athletes alerted me to another thing. Like otherwise, I don't know what's going on in the world. Anyway, we're going to talk about health and fitness things that are going on that you guys probably know about, maybe you don't, and we're going to stir the pot. In Ashley's words. So, Joe, since you turned me on to the Peloton thing, could you tell everybody, if they don't know, what's going on with Peloton, and then we'll talk about it.
So, if you haven't seen, Peloton came up with a new holiday ad. It was only a 30-second commercial that they shot. And it was, if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. And it received a ton of for a lot of ridiculous reasons. Ashley, did you watch it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. The reason why I ask if you watched it, because apparently, according to certain threads and stuff, because I'm a man, I cannot weigh in on this topic.
Right, it's supposed to be really offensive to women, and so that's why I'm really glad you're here, so we can get your perspective.
Yeah. Ashley's the only one whose opinion matters, really, on this one.
Exactly. So, I mean,
we all have to shut up now. And
no, you don't.
Ashley can tell us if it was offensive or not.
But so this woman gets a Peloton and documents her journey and all that stuff. And to me, it was executed well because of the people that we deal with and just how we work out. But everybody skipped right to, she's already skinny. Why should she be working out? And why is her husband getting her this workout equipment when she's already skinny and attractive? Like, it's just the initial things that people were going after were ridiculous. But before I get too into the weeds, Ashley, did you want to weigh in first?
Sure. So I thought it was ridiculous too, Joe. So there you go. I'm on the same page probably as the four of you guys. Like, I thought it was ridiculous, the amount of backlash, but also I think it's kind of sad that our world thinks that to work out is to only be skinny, and that was a big part of it, because fitness should be aesthetically, yes. Does everyone want to look great? Of course. But if Scott were to buy me a fitness piece of equipment for Christmas, I would be ecstatic. Like, that's just my personal opinion. Even if he got me a Peloton, I'm not crazy into it, but shoot, those things are expensive, and sure, why not? I'll give it a go. And also, if you look at the commercial, she's kind of going through her timeline of a year. And what if she loved to do fitness things, or what if she would take time to go out to a spin class, and now she's got more time because she's doing it at the house, right? Like we do our stuff at the garage. So she has more time for her family to do it. And then it looks like she's built up her confidence. And at the very end, she thanks him. So clearly she wanted this. So, I mean, if you're looking at the commercial, like overall, like what she was thinking. So I just find it hilarious. I saw Ryan Reynolds posted a hilarious thing with his aviation gin.
I was going to definitely mention that.
Yeah, sorry, I stole it. And, I was definitely made me laugh. But the other thing that I was cracking up about was like all of these women who were posting stuff like, if my husband bought me a piece of fitness equipment, he had another thing coming to him, because I was like, oh man, that's just not my view, I guess. So yeah,
I think the people that had the backlash, they're not in Peloton's market. They're not serious they're most likely not that serious about fitness or working out at home, or they were never signed up for Peloton. So to Peloton, they probably don't care if they've just lost them, because they never were.
Yeah, that's
Jared, your mind looks like it's going.
Yeah, we talked. I mean, it was one of our athletes. He posted something on his feed, and we kind of had a Facebook conversation about it. But I'm of the mindset that most products and services in the fitness world, ours included, should only be marketed to people who are already into fitness, because especially ours. Let's just look at Garage Gym Athlete. There's a decent amount of jargon, and the training isn't. I mean, we have like no gear and 3-block for more introductory stuff that people can get into, but it's training. Like we're not like doing 3 sets of 10 bicep curl then walk a mile. It's a little bit more serious. And so why would I want to go, try and convince somebody who hates fitness that Garage Gym Athlete is the place that you should be doing your training, when there are thousands of people out there who already see the value and want to do that type of training. So that's who we would want to market to. And I think Peloton was doing the same thing. While the Peloton probably could have a huge impact on your life if you're looking to get into fitness, that's really not their market, because it's really expensive, and then it's basically a mandatory monthly fee that you can't cancel unless you just don't want to use the bike anymore. So you have to be pretty committed to fitness to even want one of those things. So I think that they nailed it. The fact that we're talking about it, the fact that it was on Fox, CNN, and pushed out everywhere else, means that Peloton did awesome. Like, we're giving them free air. If you've never heard of Peloton, like, you're welcome, Peloton, and you guys can go check it out. Like we're talking about on the podcast right now. So I think they did a good job. But I asked Emily about this. I was like, if I bought you Peloton for Christmas, would you be mad? Absolutely not. She wouldn't be mad. She would think that that's awesome. But I think we all kind of have unique families and situations. So, but
if I got one, Liz would be mad because of how expensive it is.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Hannah would be really mad at me because of how much money I spent. Not because it's an exercise bike, but because of how much money I spent on it.
But hint presents are not good presents to buy. So if it's not a hint present, like if I'm like, you know what, our floors are dirty a lot. I bought you a broom. Like, that's really offensive and mean, right? Yeah. Like, and that's a hint present. That could be in,
you could at least get a Roomba.
Yeah, that could be in any category. Like, say I was gaining weight, and so all my shirts were like super tight, and Emily like bought me a bunch of like larger size shirts. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you doing? These hint presents are never like a great idea, So I think that's the people who got pissed off. Maybe you don't exercise at all, and then you get a several $1,000 exercise bike. That would be a slap in the face. Like, we don't spend any money on fitness right now. I don't exercise at all. You bought me a Peloton. What the hell? Like, okay, I get it. Yeah, that would be offensive. I could see that, but most people in our community don't see it that way, I think. VD, you haven't said a thing. He's like, I'm staying away from that.
No, so this is one of those things where when you live in the future in a different country, you're insulated from a lot of this nonsense. And so I had to actually look this one up to see what the commercial even was. Yeah, so like I hear things about certain things or whatever. Like you said, they were talked about on all on the news networks and stuff like that. So I kind of heard that there was a controversy, but I didn't understand why. So I had to actually watch it yesterday and prep for this. I didn't feel offended, and I don't care that other people are. So
what's funny is
eat it.
Joe posted in Slack. Joe's like, have you guys heard about this Peloton debate or whatever, or like controversy. And so then I looked it up as well. And then I realized I actually had seen that commercial. I think I was watching like an NFL game or something, and the commercial came on. But I watched it with not knowing that was a controversial ad at all. I just watched the ad and then went about I was like, oh yeah, Peloton has a new ad, cool, whatever. Like, didn't think anything of it at all. And then it was like several days later, Joe's like, yeah, so the internet's blown up about this. It's pretty interesting.
Like the actors in the commercial, like have like the guy who plays the husband in the commercial has gotten like a lot of like hate from people. And it's like, this dude's an actor. He didn't even actually buy this they're not actually married. He doesn't actually think anything about this woman.
You pig.
He got paid to be in an ad, and you're like going after him. And it's like, you guys are just soft, and you're just a bunch of pansies. Goodness gracious.
There we go. Nailed it.
Man, it's an exercise bike. I think people are just upset because they don't want to exercise and they don't want other people to exercise.
And it's true.
They're upset about it. And it's like, no one cares. No one cares. It's an ad.
Yeah, to be honest, like almost no one will care what you do on a daily basis unless it affects them. If it doesn't affect them, people don't care what you do or do not do for the most part.
Well, when you make healthy choices in front of people, then they get.
Well, we've talked about
affecting
that.
them in the present. Yeah, but it's come up before.
Like, I won't even mention I'm a coach to people, like at my kids' birthday parties and stuff, just because of the awkwardness that ensues after I mention that. It's always like, dude, I don't need to hear about why you don't work out. It's fine. Like, it's really fine. It doesn't
salt biscuits.
Yeah. We've talked about it. Like, salt biscuits happen. But maybe I should have those conversations because it makes the podcast better. All right. Any more before we move on to the next topic in health and fitness this week?
Just be sure to check out the Ryan Reynolds ad because it does have the same actress from the Peloton.
Is that the one with the vodka? Or the gin or whatever?
Gin.
Yeah.
Gin, okay, yeah, I kind of read about that on the research. I think I researched that more than I read through the study.
It's really funny if you watch the Peloton ad and then immediately watch the gin ad. It's really funny when you put them together.
I'm sure people on YouTube have already done those two things together.
Yeah.
Okay, next, I'll brief this one. I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast.
There's a t-shirt.
We all listen to the Joe Rogan.
Okay, so some people were talking about this in our Facebook group. So I'm not subscribed to the Joe Rogan podcast. It seems like of the 2 or 3 episodes I have listened to, it's a pretty good podcast. He goes really deep with people like, so I don't actually hate on the podcast or Joe Rogan. I only hate on people who think they're experts after having listened to a Joe Rogan podcast, just so we're real clear on that. Anyway, people were talking about it because we've already talked about the Game Changers movie. Apparently, Chris Kresser came on the Joe Rogan podcast once and debunked the Game Changers vegan movie. If you haven't watched Game Changers, it's on Netflix. It's about why you should be a vegan athlete, or really how a lot of elite athletes are becoming vegan and succeeding. A lot of science in the article. Chris and Joe had their own podcast in which Chris debunked it, apparently. I didn't watch that one. I watched the next one where Wilkes, what's his first name? James Wilkes.
James Wilkes.
Not John Wilkes Booth.
The guy who created the documentary, he came on with Joe Rogan and Chris Kresser to defend his film, point by point with science attached. So I'm going to throw out just my thoughts real quick because then I think everyone disagrees with me, and that's fine. Wilkes destroyed Kresser. And I'm not like, I know I'm kind of a low carb guy, but I don't have anybody like in my camp who I'm like I like Rob Wolf, but the thing, I disagree with some things Rob Wolf says. I think he's a great guy. I talked about that when I interviewed him. But just because I like Rob Wolf doesn't mean I'm going to agree with everything that he says. Same with Chris Kresser. I like a lot of his ideas, but some of them I'm like, and so I don't have anybody who's in my nutrition camp who I'm like, yeah, no, like this person has to win for my low carb battle. So since I don't have that approach, I looked at it very objectively and just feel like Chris Kresser got destroyed. And the reason I say that is because Chris Kresser had to concede on almost every single point when Wilkes would bring it up. And he would actually say, oh yeah, no, I didn't see that, or whatever. That's not me saying veganism is awesome and Wilkes won the you should be a vegan athlete debate. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying Chris Kresser got owned in this interview, but we're going to open it up now to everybody else here. Let's see. Ashley looks the most flustered. So we'll go with Ashley first. So what are your thoughts?
Oh man. Well, overall, I posted it in Slack, so I'm just going to say it. It stressed me out. I mean, them just bantering back and forth, and plus I'm listening to it at 2 times speed, so it's like, it sounds like they're barking at each other because that's essentially what it was. But I don't necessarily think Chris got pwned. Like, I really don't. I think that there was a lot of data that Wilkes actually used, like the low percentages, like they were talking about cancer percentages and how, in specific, I'm talking about the dairy part, where he talked about dairy and he said that dairy led to cancer, and then they looked at the prostate cancer and stuff like that. And so there was, I believe it was 87% that it didn't affect anybody. Like there was no negative or positive, like that just said that it could just be thrown out. But he was focused on that little percentage. There was random things in there that Wilkes threw that I was like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, and of course you had posted what you felt first on Slack. So here I am listening, trying to see, man, where's this Chris guy getting owned at? But I will say that Wilkes, I don't know, I felt like he pushed his opinion harder. Does that make any sense? I guess that's how I felt about it. I felt like he was trying to over talk Chris, and
that's part of the reason he won, right? Like it's like a presidential debate. It's no one's ever right in the end at the end of a presidential debate, because you'll have basically, right now at least, Democrat, Republican in the final debate, and it'll be pointing. And all the Republicans will think the Republican won, and then all the Democrats think the Democrat won. But who was more aggressive, who had the best shots, the best points. And that's kind of how this one ended up. I do agree with you.
Yeah. So overall, though, I'm in line with Chris. Like, I don't think that animal products are a bad thing if your body can process them. And do I think that plants are bad? No, I don't think plants are bad at all. And I kind of agreed with Chris when he said, I think a plant-based diet is great. I just add meat to my diet with it. I have a full plate of vegetables, with almost every meal. So, which I am right on line with. So again, nothing against vegans. I like meat. So I eat meat with veggies. So that's my takeaway from that podcast.
Kyle, I could use a good rant.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I called people pansies earlier, so I might be at my quota.
Keep going.
I vehemently disagreed with your assessment until I listened to the whole thing. After listening to the whole thing, I do agree with you more that Wilkes, as far as a debate goes, Wilkes definitely won. He won the debate. Again, I don't agree with his stance, but as far as a debate goes, he did win the debate. But the reason he did it is because he's a fighter, and he's a professional fighter, and he went into this debate like he was approaching a fight. Like he went in there to take as many shots at Chris Kresser as he could. And he did a good job at it. And there were some points that, especially with the B12 argument, he made Chris Kresser basically completely backtrack on what he had said earlier, what he had said in his solo interview with Joe Rogan. But that's the thing, too, is that Kresser didn't go in there to fight anybody, and he didn't really go in there to debate anybody. It didn't seem like. I mean, he had evidence for his stance, but he wasn't there to attack anybody or be aggressive or anything like that. And so they just took 2 totally different approaches to the whole thing. But I also agree with Ashley that I think there were some things that Wilkes got wrong as well, especially that thing you were specifically talking about with the percent. Like, it was like the first 20 minutes of the interview trying to get him to understand that this set of data does not match your stance, and that's why you're wrong about it. And it just took him forever to get to that point.
When I started there, I was like, wow, this guy's dumb. And yeah. Chris is going to destroy him. And so that was it wasn't a very solid point. He was trying to act like Chris was trying to mislead people, but I 100% agree that no evidence of cancer. Like if I were to give you a report about your blood and it said we found no evidence of cancer. That would be a positive thing. You could lump into the positive category of like no cancer,
Right.
great, as opposed to saying we did see cancer or we saw the healthiest blood ever that's moving in the opposite direction of cancer, and that's kind of what they were talking about, the three different areas that you could be in. So I agree with that point. It just, once you get into B12 and further, the forest plot thing, so it was overused. He kept saying, if you guys haven't seen it, he asked Chris Kresser if he could read a forest plot. Chris Kresser said no. He then, harpoons Chris probably 50 to 100 times before the end of the podcast about not being able to read a forest plot. While I think that was kind of a dick move, I also agree with him. Like, Chris, I'm sorry, man, you should be able to read charts, and like, I know how to read a forest plot. Like, it's not even that difficult. I think Chris had never even seen one before, which did scare me a little bit. Like, you should know how to read that. You should have looked at that.
Right.
And that's the point he's making. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually kind of agree with that one because a lot of people listen to Chris, like a lot of people listen to Chris Kresser. So if you're going to be breaking down studies and telling people how they should live their lives from a healthy perspective, man, like, you should be way better at reading studies than me. That's my opinion. Yeah. But that was my take on that. I think he overused it, but I kind of agree with him there, which is unfortunate.
I think my overall, and this might take away from what other people were going to say about it, but I think my overall impression was that nobody really wins with the whole thing. Right. But I think that's kind of a picture of this entire thing when it comes to nutrition, is that there's so much conflicting information out there that it doesn't really do any good to sit around and debate it. That, like, really what everybody needs to do is just find what works for them and just stick to it. You know what I mean? And I think more than anything, this whole deal just kind of reinforced that to me, is that you have two people who are very, very knowledgeable about their side of it. And they both seem to have scientific studies and data and all that kind of stuff that supports their side of it. And they sat around for 4 hours and argued about it and didn't really solve anything and come to any helpful conclusions especially for just regular people. You know what I mean? And so to me, I guess my biggest takeaway was I spent almost 4 hours listening to some grown men arguing back and forth with each other and didn't really walk away with anything helpful.
Oh man, you should have done 2x speed. We've been happy.
Well, I tried to do it 2x speed, but it was just too fast, and so I backed it off. So it was sped up, so it wasn't actually 4 hours. But anyway, I feel like they just kind of wasted everybody's time because they didn't really come to any conclusions.
VD, did you have a chance to check it out?
I did not. I am not willing to waste 4 hours to something like that.
We saved you, man. We saved you.
I think I got the gist of what's going on. I'm just looking at my notes here while you guys were talking. I wrote this down that like Burger King and McDonald's and stuff are bragging about making plants taste like meat, but cows have been doing that forever. So I don't really understand the argument. I feel like anytime you exclude things from your nutrition, you're kind of putting yourself in a bad position anyway, unless that's what works for you, right? In the experimentation process, like Kyle was talking about, everybody should figure out what's going to work for you. Now, if you have moral obligations that you want to stick to, save the animals and all that stuff, cool. But in my opinion, animals shouldn't taste so good. So, it's their own fault, right? But in the whole veganism kind of thing, like if that's what you want to do, cool. But don't try to argue me down because I choose not to do that.
And that's
and I'm not going to debate you for 4 hours over it either. I don't care that much.
And that's what never happened. What I thought the episode was and what it turned out to be, like if you're going there to listen to a really good debate about vegan versus people who eat plants and vegetables, more paleo style, that's not what you're going to get. That's what I thought I was going to get when I walked into it. But it really is just Wilkes defending his movie, in which he did a phenomenal job. And I think Chris was unprepared. I think Chris went into the debate because he opened up trying to talk about red meat being okay, and they never even really got to that or talked about it too much. And so they don't have that conversation, which would have been way more interesting to hear that side of things. But Wilkes really just came on to defend his movie, and that's pretty much why he was brought there too. It wasn't like, Wilkes, why'd you screw this up? It was more like, why don't you come on? Chris talked a lot of crap. Like you can defend it all. And he did a phenomenal job in doing that. But that's really all he did. So if anyone else is thinking about investing 4 hours of your time, probably not if you haven't already. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it just because you really don't get much out of it more than we've covered here. But Joe, what are your thoughts, man?
So I would agree with Kyle. Everybody lost. That's kind of how I got out of it. They both went into this interview with two different goals in mind. Chris, I think, actually tried to go in there to find a middle ground he was going to defend his position somewhat, but he also wanted to talk about the film and talk about what people could get out of it. All Wilkes cared about was discrediting and debunking Chris. And he only picked out stuff that Chris talked about in a previous podcast. And he even said during the interview that he was having fun researching against Chris. Like that's all he cared about versus actually doing research for people. So, and that's why I just really hate Wilkes now. And it just makes me, to me, he won the battle, but he lost the war. And it makes me not want to, I think it makes his film even worse to me, because at times when Chris or even Joe would say like, hey, people are watching this film and thinking that a vegan lifestyle is the best way to go. And that's what everybody is basically thinking. But Wilkes was like, no, people who thought that already went in with a biased thought of it, or we're already biased and don't matter. Like, you can't just do that. If everybody's misunderstanding your film, then you made a bad film. And even times of, okay, Chris was trying to still, throughout the whole thing, find a middle ground and be like, okay, I want all these plant things I want people to follow these plant-based diets, but also that you can still have animal products. And anytime Wilkes would ask him a question, he would be like, well, it depends on, like, he wouldn't answer the yes or no question because that's what Wilkes wanted. He would go, well, it depends on the person, depends on the situation, depends on the patient. So he actually, I think, cares about people. And while his defense wasn't that great, or wasn't bad at all, because to me, he's just a non-confrontational research kind of person who's not going to do that. He, to me, had the best interest in people, whereas Wilkes just wanted to be right. He just wanted to be the lawyer to win the case, and it didn't do, to me, it didn't do him or anybody any good.
Well, that's what Kresser does, though. He works with patients. He works with people, like helping them with their nutrition and things like that. So he takes that approach anyway. And I agree with you. That's what he wanted to do, was he wanted to talk about, is this stuff actually, let's find middle ground where we can actually help people. And Wilkes was just like, no, I want to attack you because you said my film was crap. And it's like, well, okay. So they just took two completely different approaches. And
well, Wilkes he expresses his stance at the end. You guys aren't wrong, and he doesn't shy away from that. He's like, he's like, don't lump me in with the vegans who hate everybody and like all that other crap. He's like, that's not me. He's like, what happened was I did all this research, hours and hours, apparently thousands of hours of research, and I came up with a plant-based diet, more vegan style, being the best. And that's all he cares about. He really feels the science points towards that definitively. And he made some really amazing points in this conversation. The only thing he didn't truly thwart off was the fact that he ended up saying it at the end too. He's like, he thinks that you could have clean meat that, maybe you killed yourself, that type of stuff. He agrees with that. And the science is pointing that direction. But the science, just so everybody is clear, like, if you eat a ton of animal products, like, that's not boding well for anybody. And so that's just, and I'm not saying don't eat meat, but I'm saying if your diet is primarily animal products and they're of low quality, you are probably in trouble. I am not of this mindset that, like, I look at the science too, and that's the conclusion I can draw myself, that really crappy animal products that are not high quality stuff is probably going to kill you. The science, that's what the science is telling us. If you're not eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, you will probably die an early death. So there are a lot of things that you can take away from the science, very clear. Like, if you are going to eat animal products, don't do it in excess. That's why I just can't get on board with a carnivore diet. I just can't do it. It's so ridiculous to me, especially if you're like, well, I don't think that the meat quality is important, and that's also all I'm going to eat. It's like, wow, like, I just can't even. I don't know what to do with that information. But I think if you eat your fruits and vegetables, but my big takeaway for everybody was, this stuff is actually pretty simple when you go down to N=1. I mentioned in Slack, trying to argue vegan versus meat eater, whatever you want to call it, omnivore, is like or arguing religion. It's like an atheist and a Christian sitting around trying to prove the other person wrong. It's never going to happen. Absolutely never going to happen. And so there's no point in even really doing it. But when you go down to n equals 1, just yourself, we talked about this on a podcast one or two ago. Kyle brought up that point. Like, you can get blood work done, check your inflammation, because that's the biggest thing with diet is inflammation. Get your blood work done, do a diet, check inflammation, do a different diet, check inflammation. You might have to do this in 12-week running waves, but over the course of 1 year, 18 months, 2 years, you could probably find, with some effort, the perfect diet for you. And guess what? That's all that's going to matter. You don't need to worry about arguments between vegan and paleo or omnivore, all this crap. You're like, hey, I did vegan for 12 weeks. Inflammation was off the charts or it was reduced. I did paleo, it was off the charts or it was reduced. You can start making your own conclusions very easily instead of getting arguments about what works for the world population, which is what science is that's what science is concerned with, not so much what works for Joe Courtney or Jared Moon or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, crafting your diet, you got to approach it like you would a thesis. You need to have, 10 plus sources conflicting, supporting everything just for you and yourself kind of thing. And I also just little last bit for me. I want to I'm surprised nobody called out or questioned the fact that he said he's done 3,000 hours of research since the film. Like, that's 10 hours a day for 300 days. I don't know how that's possible.
He was saying 3 hours total, adding on to the 1,000 that he already did, so 2,000 additional. But still, it's a lot of...
Yeah, it seems kind of crazy to me, but yeah.
It is. That's probably wrong. I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't think that he probably did that much research, so yeah.
Like your books are X amount of hours long, but if he's listening to them at 2 times speed, that doesn't add up to the hours.
He does know how to tear apart a study, though. I give him some credit.
He can dig.
All right, we will move on to Grog Bowl. Ashley's gonna brief this workout. We can talk about it briefly.
Yeah. So Grog Bowl for the Meet Yourself Saturday workout is you are going to do one complete round 4 time of ride 1.5 miles on the bike, or you're going to row or run 1,200 meters. After you've completed that, you are going to strap on a weight vest and do 400-meter single plate pinch carry with 20 air squat penalty for every time you have to rest or drop the plate. So complete that 400-meter plate pinch carry and then move on to, it is basically a ladder down. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 of single kettlebell deadlifts at 70 pounds for men, 53 for women, and then directly into a lateral box step up each side. So 10 on the left, 10 on the right, and then 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then move on to farmer's carry. You have 50 meters after each set of deadlifts using your kettlebell. So when you're doing the single kettlebell deadlifts, after you get to, wait, I'm kind of confused on that one. Farmer's carry 50 meters after each set of deadlifts. Oh, okay. So after you do your 10, then you're going to do a 50 meters farmer's carry. Then 9, 50 meters farmer carry, 8, et cetera, et cetera. Then you go to 400 meters single plate pinch carry again. And again, 20 penalty air squats for every time you have to rest or drop the plate. Then after you're done, you can remove that vest and then get back on your bike and row run 1,200 meters. Technically, you don't have to remove your vest. You can just make it more difficult, right?
Yeah, if you want to bike with a vest on, no problem.
Awkward.
That is
run.
That you did a good job. It's a lot to brief. So if anyone wants to check it out, we always post the workouts in the show notes, so you guys can check it out. I have done this when I did it once right after we programmed it, and the reason it's called Grog Bowl, if you guys remember, is we all threw in something. Like the little farmer's walk after every deadlift. That was VD. I think I threw in the bike. I don't remember everybody's parts, but
I'm the air squat penalty.
There you go. And so we all threw it in.
I'm the plate carry.
Yeah, there you go. And that's how this one came about. It is very hard.
It's long.
The only real advice I have, and this is with most farmer or plate pinch carry type things, is go ahead and plan where you're going to set that weight down and do it in the exact same interval over and over again, and just take the penalty. Unless you think you can do it. because grip is a funny thing. It's not like squats. Like once it's gone, it is probably gone, depending on how long you're going to rest. So if you like want to make it a full 400 meters and you get to 350 and you're just like in agony, your forearms are burning, and then you finally let go, and then you're dropping it every 5 meters for the last 50, when you could have just done it like every 100 or something and broken it up a little bit more systematically. So that's my only real advice there. Don't go as fast as you can everywhere else, but don't be a hero on the plate pinch carries. Anybody else have any tips, pointers?
No.
I'll talk about the deadlift and the farmer's carry. I literally did those yesterday as part of my training. So my best advice on that is to keep moving. Do your deadlifts. Take a second or so, shake those forearms out before you do the carry, because they are going to get fatigued, especially after doing a plate pinch for 400 meters. And then, oh, by the way, you still have one in the hopper to do. Your forearms are going to be smoked, but you'll look like Popeye when you get done. So win-win.
That is the goal.
That's it.
Awesome.
Oh, man.
So I mean, I'll take it again. If anybody has anything they want to say, that's great. But Garage Gym Athlete is the place that you want to be for your training. And that's all I got. No, okay, so we're better than Peloton.
New cycles.
We're better than Peloton. That's so boring. I mean, I'm all about cycling too. I'm the most pro cycling guy here, and I'm saying Peloton's a waste of your time and money. Just we can get you a lot fitter, faster, and healthier. So
unless you're Joe and you have a hurt hamstring.
Yeah, well, all you can do is bike, but I'm still not buying a Peloton.
Yeah, so stay away from the Peloton. Going into 2020, we have really cool cycles coming out. The webinar, so this is being published, is this Thursday. So this is being published on Monday. So this Thursday is our webinar. We're talking about the new cycles. If you go to the Garage Gym Athlete Instagram account, you'll probably find a link there, Joe, to join the webinar. As soon as I give you that link, you'll be able to share that. That's the best place to do it if you're not already on our newsletter where we send that information out. If you want to learn about the new cycles, you're thinking, hey, Garage Gym Athlete is the place I want to be for 2020, then go check out the webinar. That's the best step from here. Anybody else?
Also includes sample programming.
Yeah. Join the webinar and you get like a bunch of sample programming.
Really cool theme for the cycle coming up this next year too. This first cycle in 2020. It's a really cool theme. A really cool focus coming up too.
I wish we had the song "War" to drop.
Hey, no more hints. No more hints. All right.
That's all I was going to say. I wasn't going to say anything else.
You can't lead Joe. No. Okay. All right. We're going to cut it off right here.
Meme trail.
All right, guys. Well, it was good having the whole crew on, and until next time. Thanks for listening to the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.